Well, every now and then doing this podcast, it gives me the opportunity to sit down with some of my best friends in the world. And today is one of those opportunities. I'm here with Cody Hofhine. We've been best friends since we were what, man? You've been one of my best friends since I was probably 12 years old.
12 would be probably about right. It was the baseball days.
Well, and just to let my audience know a little bit about Cody, he owns a company called Wholesaling Inc., another one called Utah Sell Now, where he teaches people how to wholesale real estate. And dude, you just won a pretty awesome award. You just got named on the Inc. 5000 as like the number 643.
643.
Fastest growing company in
America.
In America.
Yep.
Yeah. Dude, congratulations, man.
It's been good. It's been fun. It's been far from easy, but it's been worth it.
Well, it's fun for me because when you're growing up, your buddies, we all just thought we were a bunch of idiots, right? Like
there's plenty of things in our past that would prove we were a bunch of idiots.
But you grow up and it's kind of cool because in a way, I think we're always pushing each other, where it was sports or dating or just doing one-upping each other on the crazy things we were always had going on or whatever else. I remember one time, I was going to tell a funny story with you that kind of gives our audience an idea, but I think we were like 15 or 16 and we went boating and at Jordanelle and we went camping. And
so we've grown. Let me preface this. We've grown so much since this time in life. Keep going.
Well, I'm just trying to give people an understanding, though, that like maybe if you're looking at your kid and he's in high school and you think he's a total dipshit or
my son's not going anywhere.
Yeah, like there's still hope maybe.
My mom thought that.
Yeah, my parents, I think they're probably more worried about me now than they were when I was in high school. They probably should have been much more worried about me then. I don't know.
Sure.
But no, it was funny. So we go up to Jordanelle. My dad let me take the boat, which was crazy. I guess we were probably 16 then. We were pretty young. I mean, we were 15, 16.
But responsible people too.
Sure. And back then, like, I think kids, like, one of the things I'm grateful for growing up is my parents just let me do things. Like, I tried so many things. Like, when I was 8, 9 years old, I remember walking to the football field that, looking at it now, it was like 3 miles away. Like, my parents left and there was no cell phone and I wanted to go watch my brothers play football. So I just started walking and next thing I know,
the simple principles that your parents did, maybe my parents did, is they let you make mistakes too. So my dad, he wouldn't even let me get a license until I learned how to back a trailer in. Like I was 14 years old, hopping in his truck, backing in trailers. And so that's why I say when hindsight, I'm like, we were responsible kids. But for most people in this generation, you're not giving a 16-year-old your boat and your truck and say, see you later, go
yeah, and it's like, I think that's a little bit on the parents, right? Like, I don't know if it's just because society's so different or whatever else that you can't let your kids just go and fall on their face as much as you could in the past. But I'm so grateful because, like, so many times I look back and it's like, oh my gosh, when I was 16, my parents let me take the boat out and I can't tell you how many things went wrong, like things my parents would never have wanted to know, but there's an art to figuring it out. Like I remember one time we left the key in the ignition, we drove down to Lake Powell. This was when we were 18 and we got there, turned the key in the ignition of the boat and it snapped off right in the ignition. And so we've been on the water for like 30 seconds. We have to push the boat back on. We go into the store. And long story short, the guy's like, look, I don't have time to fix it today, but you can, buy the part or whatever else. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, our trip was only like 3.5 days. So long story short, we get the new ignition and my buddy, Smurf, one of our close buddies, he goes, guys, I got this. I used to hotwire cars. And so we drive down the road like 15 minutes. Next thing I know, 45 minutes later, he's hotwired a new ignition into the boat. We're back on the water.
It's good. And we always felt our way forward. I feel like with all of our mistakes, they could have been something that we could have learned nothing from. But I will tell you, my mistakes or my failures have been my greatest strengths. They've been my greatest coaching moments.
Yeah. The greatest failure is to fear the failure itself. Like in fact, one of the cool things about failing is you do it and you actually fail and you realize, oh, this isn't even that bad. Like this wasn't, most people, it's the old saying, you die 1,000 deaths, is because most people worry so much about the failure or what's going to go wrong that they feel your body physiologically actually feels the same pain as it would if it experienced it. So if you're always worried about failing or worried about bad things happening, you actually feel that pain immediately. And when it actually happens, it's usually not nearly as bad as you thought it was going to be.
Ever. I agree.
Well, back to our story. So we were down, we go to Jordanelle. I think it was me, you, Chris,
There's probably 5 or 6 of us.
Yeah. And we go out boating. We'd kind of set up our tent with some food on the table. And we come back and like our marshmallows are missing. and we just want to cook marshmallows. We want to have s'mores, and they're gone. We're just like, there's a couple campsites like 100 feet away or whatever, and we're kind of both bugged at the time. We're like, what the heck, dude? Me and you were the most mad.
Who steals marshmallows?
Well, at this point, we still were like, what the heck? So we leave again, come back, and our donuts are gone. That's when we really lost it. And so you start yelling. I'm yelling, like, who steals marshmallows? What kind of sicko steals marshmallows? And you're yelling, like, I know it was the family up there. I know it was you guys. Well, long story short, we get in our tents that night. We're going to bed, and we hear somebody stealing our food again. So we rip open the tent. There's like 4 skunks and raccoons taking off with the rest of our food. And we realized it was the animals that had been stealing the food. So the best part of the whole story is the next morning, we're both in the tent still, and Chris was up like cooking breakfast. And this guy comes down, and he was like from the Middle East. And poor guy, man. And he's like, and we were yelling not nice things. Let's just be honest. Like we were pretty sure this family had stolen our food. And we were kind of jerk kids anyway. And he's like, I just want you to know, my family, we did not steal your marshmallows.
We would not steal food.
And me and you were in the tent like, oh no. And
Good thing Chris is out there. Good job, buddy.
Well, and he was telling us to shut up the night before, which made it even funnier. But anyway, Chris wasn't real happy with us that day because he got the brunt of it. But so my point is like, kids do stupid things, right? We could do a 5-hour podcast about all the stupid stuff we did just in a year span of high school. But what is awesome, though, is when you're in high school, when you're growing up together, you don't really know what's going to make of each person. And dude, you have just absolutely blown up. You've taken off. Couldn't be more proud of you. You've built this amazing company, and you are like the top wholesaler of real estate in the state of Utah now. Not only that, but you train everybody else to do it. So now we've got a lot of people wholesaling real estate, and I am on all their email lists.
That's right.
Thank you.
Right.
So I find all my best deals through you or through one of them.
One of my students.
Yeah. I don't know if you like sold them the list or whatever. I'm happy you did or shared it because I looked at one just yesterday in Linden. So give us a little bit of background though. How did you go from you were selling insurance and just things weren't really going that well, and all of a sudden you're on the Inc. 5000 and top 650 companies, fastest growing companies in the country?
I can't tell you how crucial it is. I think it's looking hindsight. One thing I always did was I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to succeed. I'd do anything to make sure that I succeed. Insurance was crazy. It was $19,000 my first year, by the way. Crazy.
What you made?
Me, my wife, 2 kids, and a mortgage payment. $19,000 for the whole year does not cut it. It just doesn't cut it.
How did you even live on $19,000? Like, give us an idea. Like, what was your rent? How much are you spending on food?
Yeah, our mortgage was like $700 a month.
What did you do with the other half?
I'm telling you, it's crazy. Like when I tell you, it doesn't add up. It never adds up. And there's definitely some like intervention, like godsend stuff that happened during that time that worked out. Neighbors that didn't even know we had no money also I'd look out on my porch and there was some money sitting in an envelope. But these were all little things that has taught me also that when times are good, like give what you can. Even when you don't have money, give what you can. So that when times are good, you continue to give and give and give. That's how the world goes around. But one thing that I've always wanted to do was I never wanted to work for someone. I knew that. That was the first thing. And school wasn't for me. College wasn't for me. I wasn't the smartest. After a year of college, I was like, see you later. This is crazy. And I struggled. I just decided, you know what? It's going to be hard, but let's go after it.
Well, guys like you and I, we're not very employable, frankly, because we have these ideas. We want to do things our own way. And we want to know that we're getting paid what we're worth. Sure. I think that's one of the best parts of working for yourself, whether it's in insurance or real estate or mortgage or just whatever field, entrepreneurship, right? Is you at least know at the end of the day that every day what I do is going to reflect what I'm paid for. And I think in general, society pays us our value. Like your value to the marketplace is what you end up making as a commission or an income throughout your life. So you're in this spot, things aren't really flowing the way you want to. What happened?
So everything led to its next step. I'm in insurance, I'm selling insurance, and ultimately what took place was not knowing until hindsight that insurance was a proper step, because I started insuring a ton of people just from the local real estate investor association. Started insuring all the investors. That was my goal. Like investors, they have money, they have cars, they have homes, they have things that need a lot of insurance on. And so you
became my guy.
Yeah. And ultimately I just started insuring all the investors. Now, with that, I insured a ton of fix and flips, and that policy is awful because it's on the books, off the books. There's no residual. It's just a crummy policy. It doesn't pay well. But I was able to connect with 150 cash buyers that were my clients buying homes all the time. I insured 150 investors right here in the state of Utah. And as I started going to the RIA meetings, they started talking about wholesaling. This guy's like, yeah, I did this. And all of a sudden I made like $22,000. And I'm like, what? Like 19 grand my first year and $22,000 on a one pop. I'm like, if this guy can do it, like there's no way I can't do this. Let's do this. Like let's try it. But the secret was every one of them that were talking that were big or successful, every one of them said the same thing. And that was get a mentor. Like don't reinvent the wheel. Make sure that you pay someone to do it. You're going to pay for this education regardless, whether you do it on your own or pay a mentor right now out of the gates. Go for the mentor. Don't reinvent the wheel. Just go with it. Go with it. They know how to get you there quicker. It's like a GPS. We can go to Disneyland if we want to on our own, or I can just type it in Waze and get the quickest way to Disneyland versus avoid maybe traffic jams or whatever. Those GPS are going to help us get there quicker. That's what mentorship did. So I started just looking for mentors, and that's ultimately how I got to where I am today. That's how it started.
So there's two lessons there already that I've learned. Number one is those RIA meetings, the Real Estate Investor Association meetings. Those are at night. Those are like 6 to 8 p.m., 7 to 9,
easy.
7 to 10.
Once a month.
But you were out hustling. You were going to the things. You were out there putting yourself out there. So that's number one, is you were hustling. You were doing the work, right? The second thing, and you, like, as an insurance guy, there's probably so many insurance people that are like, I don't know where to find people at. You found a great opportunity. And there's different meetings if you wanted to. I'm sure you were doing this. You'd pop into the one in Utah County, then in Salt Lake, then in Ogden. So there's, really there's 4 or 5 a month by the time you go hit them all. But the second thing you did is you found out I need to have a mentor. I did the same thing in real estate. When I started out, my first 6 months, I sold 6 houses. And I was like, pretty much like, do I want to keep doing this or not? Because, I mean, it was okay. But in real estate, when you're new, half your commission's going to your broker. And, you don't have any leverage there. And then, you're paying all your own expenses. But at the end of the day, by the time you're paying taxes, you're losing money.
Sure.
And I was just like, geez, like, I need to find a mentor. And, once I got my mentor, that's when everything changed for me as well. I went from 6, the first 6 months, I sold 6 homes. By the end of the year, I'd closed 60 my first year. And it was the day I met my mentor, everything changed. But so you find a mentor. How did you know that he was going to be a good mentor for you?
It was the same values that I believe in, whether it's spiritual, whether it's just the way that he presented himself. So what I did is I listened to a bunch of podcasts. I'm a guy that I don't need to listen to the radio. I think that's a waste of time. I know it might offend some people, but I don't watch the news. I don't even have cable. I'm just a guy that wants to learn. If I'm going to listen to something, it's got to be something that just builds me up. So I was listening to podcasts. My mentor, Tom Kroll, he was on like 10 different podcasts at the time. And that's when I was like, who is this goofball? And he is now my business partner, by the way. But we'll fast forward to that in a little bit. But it started with just finding a guy that I liked, something that his principles, his values, his morals, the way he talked, he put God first, he paid tithing, like just little things like that I was like, man, this resonates. And as I got on the phone with him, I was like, this is my guy. Like, this is it. But what got me to take the leap, if there's anything I can say to that, Tony Robbins teaches us that our why can change, like, in an instance. And it was one day coming home from work.
What year is this, by the way?
This was the beginning of 2015.
I want you guys to hear that. Like, this wasn't like 10 years ago. Like, this happened fast, and it can happen fast for anybody when they make up their mind, which is what happened to you. So, sorry.
This is perfect. So 2010 is when I started insurance. And now here we are 5 years later, 2015. And I come home early from work one day. And my wife is like, seriously, like head down in her hands. And I can hear she's crying. And I just like instantly, I'm like, whoosh, like what's going on? And I start crying. And so I'm talking to her and I'm like, sweetheart, what's wrong? And she's like, well, what do we do? Do we pay the mortgage? Or do we put food on the table for our kids? And I was just like, like lost it. I lost it. Sometimes, I mean, it's already bringing back those feelings, but it was that moment that I was like, you know what? I'm going to, instead of just investing in school, and that can be great for some people, or investing in products or technology or a car, I wanted to invest in me. And at that moment, that's when I said, I'm not letting my kids starve. I'm not letting a mortgage payment go undone. Like, I'm going to change this. I'm going to do this right now. And so that's when I started getting more involved on the investment side, on the real estate side, and came across Tom Kroll, and it was not even a question. It's like, I'm joining, let's do this, let's rock and roll. And it's all about taking, in fact, you'll see it, if you can, maybe you won't see it, but take massive imperfect action. It was never perfect. I was never the guru. I was never the one that knew everything. All I did was get simple instruction and just take massive imperfect action. It was never perfect action, but that imperfect action what got me to where I am today.
Well, that's what Gary Vee talks about, is like, you're never going, people, and especially today in the information age, people kind of stall their action because they feel like they don't have enough information yet, right? They kind of get paralyzed by this
analysis
need
paralysis.
To know more or do more. So if you're listening to 20 podcasts, but you haven't picked up the phone and started prospecting yet, you need to switch your priorities. If you're meditating for 2 hours a day, but you're not out hustling, knocking doors or knocking businesses or whatever it is, you need to change your priorities. And this is what Gary Vee said. This is when I had my podcast idea a year or 2 years ago. I sat on it for almost 6-7 months because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do it. And even you've taught me, and we'll get into this, Wholesaling Inc. is a coaching program that teaches people how to wholesale. And you kept telling me, like, Jimmy, you need to do this in real estate. You have so much information. You do this such a unique way.
It's so much value. It's not information. Information's everywhere. You can find that on YouTube. It's the fact that you provide it in a very valuable way.
Yeah. And so finally I said, you know what? I need to do this. But I didn't know how to do it. And Gary Vee, I was listening to his podcast one day and he said, take imperfect action. Same thing. He's like, you're never going to be smart enough. You're never going to know it all. Just start. And then as it goes on, you'll get better and better and better. Like, full confession, this is our second time doing this podcast, you and
The first one got deleted.
I botched the first one, and who the hell knows where it is. So at the end of the day, though, I was just grateful it was with you and somebody that I'm like,
during those 6 years,
or we could do it again. I just didn't feel
I'd go to the BYU.
But at the end of the day, that didn't hurt us. Like, this one's already going.
That guy was that
punk kid.
That's correct. No, this is so correct.
And so that's the principle I want you guys to listen from this, is Cody just took action, just did something. That's what I did to get this going off the ground. I get called once a week for people saying like, hey, I want to start a podcast. I have no idea where to start. I said, well, make a podcast episode.
Yeah.
That's part one. Go buy some equipment and start doing it. So anyway, I want to kind of fast forward. So at this point, then how long did it take you to kind of get into momentum and start making some real good money?
I'm crazy. When I love something, and I'm passionate about it, it literally consumes me. So I go nuts. And so it was not hard for me to just say, you tell me the instruction and I'll take it harder than anyone on this planet. That's just my mindset. And so I received simple instruction from Tom. It was awesome. And I just took massive action. Now, the good thing is I already had 150 cash buyers.
That's so good.
Instantly.
Yeah.
So he's like, you got to have 150 cash buyers. You got to find the buyers before you find the deals. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how many deals you find. I'm like, wow, I already got it. He's like, how do you have 150 cash buyers? I'm like, I insured them all. Like, I know every one of them in the state of Utah. And so I ended up getting a quick track on that. But then it was just the scary stuff, though. There's some scary stuff that goes into it.
Well, you even had insight into who actually was buying the most homes because you were doing all their deals.
And they told me their money. They're like, oh, it's just my insurance agent. Yeah, I made $20,000. I'm like, whoa.
That's genius. Well, and the parallel there again is you didn't even realize this, but by hustling in insurance, even though at the end of the day, insurance, you can argue it worked, it didn't, whatever else.
It did. It's a building block.
Exactly. It got you to that next level. And I can't tell you how many times in my life, like I did the TV show back when I was like 22, 23, not on the first date. The show lost money, right? But
you sold meat door to door. You think you'd be the realtor without that?
The thing is, the TV show, even though I lost money because I was paying everybody else, I met every successful business owner that had an entertainment or a restaurant place in the entire freaking Wasatch Front.
Yeah.
And so even though I didn't make any money, my network at 22, 23 years old was crazy good. And that catapulted me once I got into real estate, similar to kind of what happened with you with wholesaling.
Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy. And did fear hit me? Yes, guys. But I'm telling you, fear will cripple you if you allow it. Or you can just say, you know what? Regardless if I have this feeling or not, I'm going to move forward. I'm going to do it. And I did it. And within a short amount of time, I think I did my first deal about 39 days.
So tell us about your first deal, because I think there's the value in that is, how did you get that first one? How did you get that first deal to happen, to actually go through?
It's understanding, right? It's understanding that on my game, for those that may or may not know what wholesaling is, wholesaling really has very little to do with real estate.
You explain it a little bit in detail, what you do when you're wholesaling property.
Wholesaling is simple. It's really, think of it more like a pawn shop. So if you're at a pawn shop, There's a guitar sitting here. There's a rhino sitting here, and I don't want it anymore. I take it to the pawn shop. They say, yeah, we'll give you 50 cents. And then tomorrow they sell it for $2, and they made $1.50. So same thing with this. I market to the state of Utah, and I'm looking for deeply discounted properties, but I'm not looking for the actual real estate as much as I'm looking for a motivated seller. Like, I was motivated to just get this crap off my desk, sell it, get rid of it, and go and walk away. There's people out there that their homes are such a pain in their life that I'm looking for those motivated sellers so that I can then talk to them and hopefully find a solution. How maybe they're behind on mortgages, maybe behind on taxes, but ultimately what I do is I put these homes under contract at a deep discount. From there, it's an assignable agreement. And so it's literally taking a piece of paper that I put on contract, and then I come to someone like you that's a cash buyer that wants to either fix and flip it or buy it for a long-term rental. And I say, hey, I've got this home, and maybe I put it under contract for $100,000, and when it's fixed up, it's worth $200,000. I come to you and I say, hey, you can buy this home for $120,000. Here's the contract that allows you to go buy it. And then you go to closing with $120,000. The title company cuts me a check for $20, cuts a check for the seller for $100. I walk away, and Jimmy gets to go fix a home. But wholesaling really is just a pawn shop on steroids. Instead of $1.50 rhino, I play with real estate.
Well, it is such a perfect example of what it really is. Well, we kind of started doing something like that in high school. I don't know.
And not even knowing it, by the way.
Yeah, we were wholesaling in high school, but what we did is if you remember this, we had all the best concert tickets, because back then, this was like the internet was just going and stuff, but they still would sell at the location of the concert, the tickets the day they went on sale at the ticket booth. And so what would happen is people would go to the arena like Delta Center or whatever, and we would sleep out. And we discovered this little trick, and this was the genius of us as kids.
More genius of you, and I just tagged along at that time.
Fair enough, but maybe we were helping each other there. But no, I discovered there was 4 booths, and what they do is, say there's 1,000 people that sleep out. Everyone gets a number 1 to 1,000, and then whatever number they pick becomes the first person in the line. And so nobody usually would go sleep out by themselves, and you got up to 8 tickets per number. So if I was like we were usually the first ones there or whatever, but somebody picks number 320 as the number 1 pick, then I would go and I'd take $50 cash with me, and I'd offer it to the people they were with. I'd say, like, hey, how many tickets are you buying? I'll go 4. I'd be like, hey, can I buy your ticket? Because if they were 320 number 1, then 321, the person with them, wasn't buying them. So we would buy the next few people's tickets for $50. And when they opened 4 windows at a time, we were the first one. So we had front row tickets to every concert. We'd buy them for $40, $50, turn around, sell them for $400 or $500. I remember that was like my only job in high school.
Wholesale.
I literally was wholesaling concert tickets. That was my only job when I was in high school. That was, I wish they could still do that, because we got front row to every single concert. It was amazing. And anyway, that was my little secret. So boom, there you go. That was my first entrepreneurial
wholesale,
successful wholesale.
That's right. That's right.
Well, and so you start wholesaling, and you decided, like, man, this is going so well. All of a sudden, you went pretty quickly into coaching and teaching other people how to do it. Or did that take more time?
May of 2015 when I started wholesaling. About 40 days into it, did my first deal. Then once you do one, it's no different than one listing or one. All of a sudden you're like, this is real. I can do it. Now I'm just going to throw some gasoline on this. Let's rock and roll. And so pretty soon it got to doing 2 deals a month, then 3 deals a month, then 5 deals a month, then getting a team in place. But ultimately, when I got into coaching, it was because things were going smooth, they're going well, growth was going, a team was in place, and my mentor, Tom Kroll, I called him up, I'm sharing with him things that I'm doing. He's like, man, that's brilliant, didn't even think about that. He's like, let's team up. And so I ended up buying half of Wholesaling Inc. in August of 2016, so just a little over a year. Now, this was a company that was already doing millions in coaching. So I bought half the company, and ever since August of 16, Tom and I have just been pushing full force and getting people in. And the secret behind it is we truly love, like, our passion is we wake up and say, how do I help Sally's student get their first deal? It's not, how do I sell more programs? That's the furthest thing from being successful. It's truly loving what you do, serving individuals, giving value, and then realizing the money will follow.
Well, and you know, it's fun for you because as the coach, you get to see in real time as these people have success. It's very similar in real estate. I have an agent on my team, and he's been, he started about 2 months ago. Like when people close their first wholesale deal, they post a picture with the check, that you get to see their success. It's very uplifting. It's very inspiring for you to want to keep doing it and help more and more people. The same thing for me. Like I had this, this agent again that, he's for 2 months, he's been hustling, and he finally closed his first deal. And he came into my office this morning to pick up the check, and he got choked up. And I just remember what that's like. That first deal, like you said, you just want to throw fuel on the fire. I remember the first time I sold a case of meat, I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like somebody just bought that off me. Or the first time, I sold a house. I remember the first time I got somebody it was more so the first time I got somebody to I was calling for sale by owners. It was the first time I got a listing from calling it for sale by owner. And it like changed my life because I was like, I couldn't believe it. I had cold called this random stranger, and I had somehow convinced her. Her name was Barb. I still remember. It was in Pleasant Grove. It was like a $185,000 house. I could drive to it right now because it had that much impact on me. Sure. Right? Just that moment when you're like, I can do this. And then I just poured the fuel on the fire, just like you said. Well, one thing about you, Cody, is you were just so driven, and I've noticed that you actually, everything that you do now is about rhinos. You have this rhino, like it's like a success club of
everywhere.
Rhinos, right?
Bookends,
yeah, you have a rhino. I love it. By the way, I hope they don't go extinct, stupid hunters. Like I almost fought one of my friends the other day because he told me he shot a rhino once. But it was like 10 years ago before it was like as frowned upon.
I would say it was frowned upon 10 years ago.
Yeah,
it's
a lot worse now. If you shoot a rhino now, you are an asshole.
Write his
just
name
know
down.
that. But anyway, but where do give us a little bit of it? What's your routine, or how do you get yourself in this place where you have so much energy and drive to work hard every single day? Because I think for a lot of people, that's the big dilemma is like, okay, I know I need to do this, but I'm just not motivated to do it.
This is probably a different answer than most answers right out of the box. It's realizing that if you want life to change, it's you that has to change. If you want life to get better, it's you that has to get better. The world's going to be the same regardless. I can't control that. What I can control is myself. And so each and every day, I knew that if I wanted to make ultimately $1 million, I had to look at it in the sense of, Cody, who do you need to become to be $1 million worth of value to the marketplace? And so you learn this, and this is not anything new news that I'm sharing. I'm just repeating what I've learned from my mentors. But Darren Hardy in The Compound Effect, he's looking for his wife, and he says, I want a wife that's blonde hair, that's this tall, that this weighs this much, that comes from this family. Here's the hobbies. And he wrote a 40-page document on what his perfect wife would be. And then Jim Rohn says, basically, success comes after you become someone that you need to be. So he starts looking at it, he's like, oh my goodness, I'm doing this wrong. If I want to find this wife, I've got to figure out what kind of man is this lady looking for in a husband. And so he wrote 40 pages on who he would need to become and what this woman would be looking for so that he could find this perfect wife. And he said he started working on him. He started working on everything that he would need to become to be worthy of a woman of this caliber. And he says when he became this person, this 40-page document, he went to town. He started working on himself. And within a short time, he says it's eerie how close, when he found his wife, how eerie it is, how close it is to the 40-page document that he originally wrote on the perfect wife. But it's because he wasn't now focused on how do I find this woman. He was focused on how do I become the man worthy of this woman.
Oh, that's great. That's going to be a clip that I'm going to share over and over again because there's so much power in that. That when you set a goal, the accomplishment isn't achieving the goal. It's what kind of person do I have to become in order to achieve that goal, right? Same thing that you said. It's people ask me all the time, like, how do you, with your network, how did you meet so-and-so? How did you get to meet so-and-so? It's like, well, I became a person that they wanted to meet.
That's right.
That's the trick. That's the magic pill. Like, successful people aren't going to reach down and just randomly go hang out with Schmo Joe that's not doing anything with his life.
That's right.
Like, become somebody of value or work on the parts of you that you need to so that you can attract the people or the opportunities into your life that you really want.
On top of that, it's always leveling up. Now, I'm not saying you can't forget about your past friends, but if you're around negative people, at some point you've got to get serious with yourself and say, this isn't going to work. Mm-hmm. If you want to be a spiritual person, it's not simply saying go hang out with people that want to be spiritual. It's saying go hang out with people that are already spiritual, and you're going to see that they live certain principles that you're not living. And as you adopt those principles, the likelihood of you becoming them becomes a reality. So in every area of your life, whether it's fitness, whether it's spiritual, whether it's business, who are you surrounding yourself? Jim Rohn, who ends up being one of my favorites. I read all of his books. He says, you're the average of the 5 closest individuals you hang out with. Mm-hmm. Who are you hanging out with? What's your 5 average people? So if you told me your 5 closest friends, I could tell you how much you make. I could tell you whether you drink or smoke. I could tell you what sports you like, because you are the average of those people you hang out with. And so if you want to make $1 million, you probably can't find that advice from someone that's making $50,000 a year. I'm not saying that's against anyone making $50,000, but you've got to be surrounded by people that are actually making $1 million, not want to make $1 million. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to realize they live principles that I wasn't living, that you may not be living. And as you adopt those principles, the likelihood of you becoming them becomes a reality.
Well, it's funny. When I was younger, I used to have these ideas like, oh, I want this, or I want to be this, I want to have this much money. And it was like, I was never going to have, be, or do those things before I became who I needed to be in order to attract those things in my life. And I look at it now that I'm around those people, or people that are making just crazy amounts of money, right? Or people that have these hugely successful companies, or people that are doing the most amazing things in life. And it's true every single time. It's like, I think about it all the time. Like, that person would not want to be around 26-year-old me or 23-year-old me that was just being an idiot or doing stupid things, right? And so you kind of got to look back and be like, okay, that's what I need to be. And people are going to be attracted to their likeness because they don't want their income to drop either. So I'm going to help. I'll help you if you're like, but I'm not going to spend, like, we're not going to become BFFs that are hanging out every day if you're living a lifestyle that you're totally satisfied making $50,000 a year. Like, I just want more of my life. That's it. Like you said, nothing wrong with it if that's what you want. Now, people always say to me, they're like, Jimmy, you should get married. You need to be married, all these different things. It's like, well, I run with the most single crew that there could ever be. So until I decide to until we decide
up
to probably
your game,
do something different,
out.
I'm probably not going to want to get married. That's just the way life is, right? Or we're not going to be married. And so it is funny, though. It's like you can see it for the good or the bad, every aspect of your life. Like, whatever you're trying to attract or whatever you are being, you're going to attract more of.
Absolutely. That quote has always been with me, so I always made sure that I was surrounding myself with better people than me. If I'm the smartest person in the group, I'm in the wrong group. Yeah. Like, that's a problem.
Yeah. I love being the dumbest guy in the room.
And that's the truth. But then the success principle when it comes to business, it's always giving more in value than you ever charge in price. Mm-hmm. And so that's probably been my biggest key takeaway from my mentors, as well as something that just from personally living it with our own business models. It's, how do I give more value than I'd ever charge in price? And get ready. Now you're onto something that's going to pay so much more, that's going to always come back tenfold. And I live and die by that principle.
Well, and you've shared a lot of stories with me. You just got back from North Carolina. You were speaking to a couple, almost 1,000 people.
I wish it was that. That would have been awesome. It's 350 people.
Okay. But you've shared a lot of the stories of these people and how they've almost like created this tribe because their lives have changed so much from what they've learned from you in wholesaling. Tell us 1 or 2 stories of maybe somebody that had a similar, change in their life because they met you and got your mentorship.
So one that just particular, I had a 20-year-old call in saying, hey, I want to do this. I really want to do this. Everyone wants to do it. It's, are you willing to get uncomfortable and do it? Because it's not comfortable. It's very uncomfortable, but uncomfort is where you find your joys and where you find your successes. But he was just on the phone and I could hear he was struggling like, okay, well, and he's 20 years old. He's so young. Think of me and you at 20 years old. And the fact that he's on the phone with me, I just like, kudos to you. But that's when I turned on, like, I've really got to pour into this guy and let him know. If he just follows the typical trend of life where you just go to school and be a army of employees like the rest of the people at school, and forgive me if that's blunt, and it's invest in a 401k and an IRA and get all these golden handcuffs strapped to you from corporate America. Like, it's,
I'm falling asleep just hearing you talk about it.
I knew he was going to follow that trend because that's what his generations and generations had done. And so I asked him just point blank, and I said, do you live with your mom and dad? And he says, yeah. I'm like, do you want to continue to live with your mom and dad? And he's like, no, I want to go on my own. I said, and what's going to change that? He's like, well, right now I Uber. And I'm like, and how's that going? Tell me, like, at what point do you see Uber pulling you right out of your parents' basement and you're going to afford your own lifestyle? And he's like, never. I said, so are you going to invest in Uber? Or who do you think you should invest at this moment? And ultimately had a come to Jesus moment, and we were just talking back and forth, and he started just breaking down, crying. He's like, "You're right. I need to do this. I feel like I'm trapped. I feel like because my grandpa and grandpa's grandpa and grandpa's grandpa to my parents, to me, that this is the route I'm supposed to go in because that's all our family's ever done." And I'm like, no, you can live your life. Like, you can own your life. You just got to be courageous enough to do it. He ended up getting like 5 credit cards to make the first half payment of the program. And he put all these credit cards, and like one of them didn't, or 2 of them didn't even work. And so it was a struggle. It was a challenge.
Well, I don't even, people listening might be cringing like, oh, that's a bad idea. But it's when you're backed up against a corner, something special happens if you have a fight inside of you.
He had the fight. I wouldn't do this talk with everyone. Mm-hmm. It just wouldn't happen. I could see this guy just needed some real coaching and just some leadership poured into him. And so we went after it. Let's fast forward from the time he joined the program, 40 days later, he calls us back, and he is just like crying, but with excitement. And at first I was like, crying, is this a bad cry? And then all of a sudden he's like, man, this is amazing. Just got my first deal, $17,000. A 20-year-old.
Yeah,
I didn't start until I was 32 years old. If I was 20 years old and I would have started done, I'd probably be retired. Like, it'd be a whole different game. But 20 years old, 17 grand. What does that do for you? Right. I know what it did for that 20-year-old.
You're the richest guy in the world if you're 20 and you just got your
17 grand.
$17,000.
Oh my goodness, yes. And so he those are just one of many testimonials that I get to witness every single day. It's awesome stuff, but it's because I don't look of how to make money. It's how do I genuinely tap into these people, serve these individuals, give them more value than I ever charge in price. Mm-hmm. And the payday is not the money. The payday is when they call me back in tears saying, you just changed everything.
Well, when you first started telling me that you were wholesaling, we did a couple of deals together right off the bat. We did one downtown in Salt Lake on Jackson Avenue.
Yes,
remember this house?
yes.
And I think you sold it to me for like $140, and you had about 10 people that wanted to buy it.
Sure.
And I think everyone, and I just said, hey, Cody, I don't care. I want you to make the most money off of me.
Was this the one with the creepy TV in the basement?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
This house, I'm pretty sure, was haunted, but whatever. You don't have to disclose that in the state of Utah. No, there was like from The Ring, dude. Like, yeah. I literally would have been just as surprised that a girl didn't crawl out of that TV if one had. Like, it was that creepy of a house. We could have charged an admission to have people just walk through the house.
It was poltergeist. It was, I agree.
But this house, it was in bad shape, but best location downtown. And it had a cool little charm to it. It was very good looking from the outside. And you sold it to me for $140,000. And I remember because I asked you.
I tell you what I got it for?
Well, you did.
Okay.
Because you said the number, and I was shocked at how much it was. And I think it was like 50 grand. Like, it was 40 or 50 grand that you were pulling in on.
The first guy got it under contract for like 60.
You got to keep in mind, this house was like falling apart. So
correct.
Whoever owned it probably just never wanted to think about it again.
Correct. I got it for 100.
100, yeah.
And then I said, I actually don't want to fix and flip this. I called you up and said, I got a home for you, 140.
Yes, well, here's the best part, is you told me how much you were making, and you're like, I'm not going to negotiate that, though. Like, that's what I'm worth. And I said to you, I said, dude, I want you to make the most money off of me, because that means you'll come to me first for the deals.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those principles in business. Who gives a crap what anybody else makes? It's one of the things I say to people when they try to cut me down on my commission. I say, hey, clearly when you say you want to cut your commission, all you're saying is you want to net the most money you can, right? And they say yes. I say, well, if I can help you get what you want, are you okay if I get what I want? It's a great line because it's like, of course, right? Yeah. So it's a win-win. You've hired the best. I'm going to get paid to be the best. But in that moment, you were like, oh, I like that. Well, the funny part about that is I buy the...
You didn't even fix it, didn't you?
I buy the damn thing. We started to. We got all the junk out, and we got a dumpster, and we got all the junk out. And it was just too big of a project. I couldn't believe how much of a project it was. And I was going to maybe make 20 grand if I fixed it up by the time I put 50 grand into it.
Right.
And I said, maybe I'll just put it up on the market as is and see what happens.
Sure.
And so I put it up on the market and we'll be accepting offers, next Friday. I had over 40 people. The market was going crazy. It's 2016. I had over 40 people go through it. I think I sold the thing for like $210, dude. It was insane. cash
As
deal.
is.
Yes, we made like, it was one of my best flips I ever did. It was like 50 or 60 grand. I never touched the damn thing. But it was just the power of that really hit me like, oh my gosh. And so I kind of got intrigued with the wholesaling, like maybe I should be looking more at this as like the wholesaling side. But then you explained to me that what you're doing on a daily basis to find deals like this, and it blew my mind. I'm like, well, okay, I'm not doing that.
I'll just get on your list.
But for those that are listening right now and they're like, wow, he found this easy thing to do. Like, I'll be honest, flipping concert tickets, that was easy. That was a hell of a good time. Unfortunately, the golden goose died.
And what were you out? You're out 4 hours of sleep, 5 hours of sleep.
Well, it wasn't not even because we would, that would be the funnest part of it. We'd get a couple of our girlfriends to come with us and we'd all hang out and sleep over, you know. But yeah, I mean, you're sleeping like 2 hours by the time they...
Right.
But yeah.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it was just such a rush to like do the whole thing.
Right.
Too, right. But give people an idea of what a wholesaler is doing on a daily basis. When you started out, what were you doing to attract these deals and to find these deals?
So after getting cash buyers in place, you have to now inevitably start marketing. Marketing is the lifeblood of any business. And so it's delivering the right message to the right people at the right time. You get that holy grail together, those three things, and it's get ready in any business. And so you had to target. So our main focus at the time, and still continues to be a great focus, is direct mail. And so many people think direct mail's dead, and I'm here to tell you, keep saying that so I can keep doing it. It's awesome. Direct mail's been great, but I had to market, because if you're not consistently marketing, you won't ever have phone calls. So it goes back to the marketing. If you market, you'll consistently get phone calls. If you consistently get phone calls, you consistently go on appointments. If you consistently go on appointments, you consistently make offers. If you consistently make offers, you consistently get contracts, which ultimately leads you to consistently getting paid. And so we have to market, and you have to market a lot. At the beginning, it was like $1,500 maybe a month to really just go out there and get your first deal. But if you want to do like 10, 15 deals a month, you have to boost that up. $1,500 is just not going to cut it. And so we send a lot. You
basically, once you got the formula, you just ramped up your marketing.
That's correct.
That ramped up all your numbers, right?
That's correct. And everything in business, in any business, no matter what business you're in, if you're not measuring it, or if it's not measurable, it will never grow. So you always have to know your numbers, know your data. Everyone says that all the time, know your numbers. I didn't realize it until I got into this business. Insurance is like, yeah, I just got to go on this many appointments, I'll get this many policies. But now I even know what my postcard should say, that it shouldn't say the name, my name's Cody, I want to buy your home at 123 Main Street. We now tested it with another name, which is another guy on the team. It's Mark Stubler. So we put, hi, my name's Mark, I want to buy your home at 123 Main Street. We get a higher response rate and conversion rate off that name than Cody. So we let data literally tell us, so that when we have extra money sitting here, it's not a guess saying, well, let's throw it here and see what turns of it. We can say, okay, data's telling me invest in a tax delinquent list, mail out X amount of mail pieces to them, and have this name on it saying this message, and it nets us the best results. So if you're not measuring your business and you don't know your numbers, man, that's crazy. That's I don't know if success will ever come your way. Success comes to those that measure everything. And if you can measure it, it'll lead you on a journey that you'll absolutely love.
Well, I went to Tony Robbins' Business Mastery back in January, and that was the number one principle that I got out of it, is that you have to be measuring everything. He had the original dad from Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah,
Robert Kiyosaki talks about his rich dad. He had that guy.
That's correct.
Something Cunningham.
Yeah.
Bill Cunningham, I think.
Yep.
Come and he spoke, and he just talked about the importance of knowing every single one of those numbers. So I think that is such a good principle. What are one or two other things you've learned? I mean, you've been now this journey. You guys are one of the 650 fastest growing companies in the country. That comes with a lot of challenges, this growth. What are a couple key things that you've learned, or maybe obstacles that you didn't foresee that you had to overcome, that you could help somebody listening to this right now? We'll kind of end with this, but like a couple things that you've learned that you could help, a young business owner with as he's getting his company, wants to grow like you have.
Gosh, the power principle that I would say is get out there and take action. It's not going to come to you. It's going to be tough as crap. It's going to be hard. It's going to be draining. It's going to be nights where if you're with a spouse that she's like, how much longer is this going to happen? Like it takes a lot of sacrifice. It's not easy. And if anyone pitches that being an entrepreneur is easy, do not follow that road. That is a complete hoax. It is difficult, but I will tell you, when you're on the difficult road, you should know you're on the right road. And second of all is you you will never find the joys you're looking for in all aspects. Think of, well, I can't say think of when you got married, but think of anything that's been of most value in your life and anyone's life that's listening. The things that have been of most value has never been found on the easy road. It's always been a tough journey. You didn't become the baseball player you were because you were just gifted with this incredible talent. You had to bust your butt off, and you probably bust your butt off harder than anyone, to the point where your dad's like, we even got to get a batting cage in the backyard. Like, we've got to turn you into something because this is not natural to you. It's not natural to me. And so get uncomfortable, stay uncomfortable, and just find ways to deliver value. If you will go with one of my favorite books, The Go-Giver. If that's probably my favorite business principle, simple principle, is so many people are like, I'm a go-getter. Bag go-getters. Be a go-giver. Go out there and find out how to give. Gary Vee says jab, 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 right hook. And he says give. It sets you up for a sell, right? Yeah. Same exact principle. Give. And you're going to realize you help enough people get what they want, and you will ultimately get what you want in return. It's the law of the harvest. It happens tenfold. Don't be afraid to give. Don't worry about money. Money follows value that you add to the marketplace. Be value, and always charge less or always give more in value than you ever charge in price, and you'll watch this thing just flourish into something that you've always dreamed it to be.
I think that's, I read The Go-Giver about 5 or 6 years ago, and I implied all those principles. I actually had Bob Berg, the author, on the podcast.
He was on ours. I love him.
Oh, he's great. I wanted to get that guy's information. So if you haven't listened to that one, I think it's episode right around 40, 45, but go give it a listen, because the principles in that book are timeless and they are priceless. So, dude, such a pleasure, always. I'm sure I'll see you soon back. We played on the softball team this year, and
we were awful.
Oh,
what
man,
an awful team.
You know that you're working too hard in business when we go 0-8 in softball.
And you know you don't care anymore. Like when we're laughing, like I struck out for the first time I don't even know if anyone's ever struck out in softball. They're throwing a watermelon at you, and I struck out in softball, and I went home and I was able to laugh it off. That was when I knew.
Well, even in the moment, we had a lot of fun, you know? It's like, I think it's like, decide in life where you need to win. And I always say this to people, sometimes when you win, you actually lose. Just think about that. And sometimes when you lose, you actually won.
Sure.
So we'll end it on that.
100%. Thank you, my friend.